Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor, and we're getting ready to look at another Linux distribution. Today we are looking at Elementary OS Luna. Elementary OS was requested by one of my subscribers that I take a look at it and give you a brief overview. If this is the web page that we have up right now, which gives you a little bit of an idea of what Elementary OS is. It talks about what their goals are here, some of the issues that they do with their widgets and menu system, speediness, features, things like that. I'll get into that in just a little bit, but this is their main page. I also went to the distro watch to kind of show you there what it talks about with Elementary OS, because this is where I'm getting some more information that maybe it's in the web page, maybe not, but this is a Canadian version. It says that the desktop is based off of Gnome for beginners and desktop live medium. Now I will say I was a little disappointed in their live medium. I booted into it and I kept seeming to get a lot of lagginess, a lot of slow response time. I'd click on things and not get a response for a while and have to sit back and wait and linger and wait some more. But once I got it installed, there didn't seem to be any problems at all. The installation was quite easy. A few simple questions. Always make sure you're paying very close attention to your partition tables when installing with multiple OSs. But other than that, very simple, not that difficult to get installed, and up and running within 15 to 20 minutes probably. They do try to do upgrades and system files when you're actually doing the installation. If you say that you'd like to do it and you're connected to the network, it does install it from the GUI that you do boot into, and not just an installation GUI that it loads. Definitely a little different than what I'm used to seeing. Maybe I'm getting old, and as an old guy, it's hard to teach an old guy new tricks, or is that an old dog? Either way, I'm not used to having the close button on the left side, and I'm not used to having this button here for maximizing and then windowing. And if you notice too, there's no button for if you just want to minimize, and the only way you can pretty much minimize is by right clicking in an application and then telling it to minimize. And then again, I'm not exactly sure where it goes to, because it doesn't come up here and list it. So let's see here, if we minimize that and then I click back on this, by the way, it comes default with Midori, so that's the browser that we're using right now. And if we click, I guess if we just click the button down here for Midori, it brings it back for us. And I assume then, for instance, if I had opened up Simple Screen Recorder, then that works as well. And that's the biggest thing. Most of these OSs, they're very intuitive. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out how they've set things up and what you can do. It's just a little different and something to get used to. If you don't like it, however, I'm sure there's ways to go in there and customize it to make it look exactly the way you want it to work. I mean, I've gone into KDE flavors before where they've done weird things like this, and you just have to go into the custom settings and undo all the window decoration that they've done and put it to your liking, the way you want to use it. So, getting back to Elementary OS, as I said, GNOME based. It did say somewhere else, so here we are, somewhat based on Debian and Ubuntu. And this is another feature I don't really care for. I saw that in a version of KDE at one time they did this too, where they have this silly scroll bar that disappears and all you see is it when you come over to it. Now when you're over here, I must accidentally have tapping on. I hate that when that happens. When you're over here, for instance, I'm used to being able to scroll up and down. Natively scrolling up and down doesn't work with my touchpad here, so you have to come over here and grab this little bit piece to go up and down on it. And of course there's ISOs that you can download, and it looks like this particular package manager is actually based on Debian because I'm using the .2 Luna. Now, one complaint I did have when I first went to install, sometimes I go to DistroWatch and they're not pointing to really the best location to get it, or sometimes they haven't updated. So I'll go directly to the website, such as in this case, http://elementaryos.org. Now, at first I looked at this and I said, hold on, $10 to install Luna? Now, I thought this was a free and open source issue, and now it does say down here, download Luna for free. But if you click on this download button, it automatically comes to a payment of $10 and says, do you want to pay with PayPal or credit card? And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to do either of those. When I do a distribution review, I really want to be able to pull a free version because Linux should be free unless you're paying for some sort of support. And if you go on down here throughout their web page, you get down to the bottom, it does talk about the full-featured, safe, secure, blah, 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 100% free. Now, I don't like things that make you feel like you're obligated to give something. As I said in a previous video, I don't mind supporting financially if I have the ability to support financially. Most of the time, if I really like an OS, I'll try to buy t-shirts for the kids, t-shirts for myself, ball caps, mugs, things like that that have the logos on there, especially things that I can take out in public. So people will say, hey, what's Slackware all about, for instance, on the t-shirt that I wore a couple episodes ago, and I can tell them, oh, that's a Linux distribution, and I can tell them all the good things about it, and it kind of opens a segue into being able to share Linux with those who might be interested but don't know how to get started. But I don't like when you come to something and it says, oh, $10? Because that made me feel at first like I was obligated to give them $10. And I didn't see that download for free. But even if you click on download for free, okay. The last time I thought I clicked on it, I thought I still saw $10. It now says $0 there. But when I had done it, I had missed that completely. I clicked on the download and I said to myself, okay, well, I'm going to put that as 0.00 and see what happens. And it lets you download, of course, just like you saw when you click the button for download for free. But if you're not paying attention, you're just boom, 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 click, 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 click. Yeah, I could see someone thinking that they were obligated to pay for that without realizing that, no, they shouldn't have to. And I don't like that up front. I don't mind a button that says, hey, contribute here. Or while you're getting ready to download, it says, would you like to contribute, at this point in time? But to make it feel almost like you had a $10 charge, and now it says, of course, $0 because I clicked on the download Luna for free. But before, it defaults, of course, to $10. Off my soapbox, that's all I'm going to say about that. That is what it is. Now, let's minimize this stuff for a little bit here. We'll take a look at the menu system. When you first open up, you're going to have a graphic menu desktop. Nothing on the desktop, of course, just your background. And I've installed a lot of things because this initially only came with about 1.5 pages of files. Now they say it comes with a lot of applications, but for a newbie, I installed the VLC media player. I installed, let's see here, simple screen recorder, this media info, LibreOffice, more LibreOffice, GUVC. I installed the GIMP. You're getting the idea here. Extreme Tux Racer I threw on there. Clementine I threw on. You start taking all those applications out of the equation, and you've got a system that you're going, what do? I really don't see that many applications to do much with. Now, it did come with Midori, but if you're not familiar with Midori and you're familiar, say, with Firefox or another browser, then you'd be looking for it and be saying, where's my browser? I'm not familiar with Midori, but I've heard the name many times. I've used it once or twice. I'm not remembering that it looked like this icon or not. But browsing over some of this stuff, for instance, it says Midori, and I said, okay, well, I don't know what Midori is, but let's check it out. And hey, it was the browser. You've got your mail, empathy for instant messenger, calendaring, music, movie player. By the way, the movie player failed when trying to replay some MP4s, and that's another thing. Out of the box, I had, and maybe there's a simpler way to do this, but I had to go and find codecs to install so that I could get just the basics of MP3, MP4s, different video, other video files, even open source free stuff like OGG and Theora and Vorbis, that sort of stuff. I had to install separately just to get those codecs down there. It's almost like it came bare bones without that. Now, I think for a beginner OS, the most important thing is that it gives you as much as possible straight out of the box, and then lets you weed out the stuff you don't know. Because as an advanced user, you know to jump into a box and start pulling in all the applications that you want. But as a new person, you don't know exactly what you want, what it's called, or sometimes how to go about getting it. Simple things like that. It has Shotwell, and I myself have never used Shotwell, but evidently that is a picture manager, which I found out. And at least they put the system settings here that you can get into, and the software center is very straightforward. If we click on the software center, it pulls up this area here. Now, it feels really commercial to me, and I don't really, and maybe this is a Ubuntu style thing, I'm not sure, because I know Ubuntu's really getting commercial, and I've been hearing it. That's one of the main reasons, for instance, Steam went with Ubuntu, is because they had that purchasing ability built into it. Now, this too has a lot of stuff that isn't free. You go start looking through some of these things, ideas here, and you're going to find that, for instance, like this one here, just pulling up Linux Format Magazine, they want to sell it to you for $6.99. Now, it's probably, it's just one issue. Well, you can get that, I believe, for $5 something if you look at Xenio or some of the other digital versions of that magazine. I know I'm a Linux Format subscriber. I used to get it in paper edition. I now get it in the digital, but I'm not going to pay $7 for it, and I'm especially not going to pay it out of a package manager like this. When I'm looking at Linux, I'm not looking for an OS that I can purchase stuff from. I'm looking at what can I get from Linux up front to get myself more involved. Maybe later on down the road I might be interested. And I didn't see, when looking at the view stuff and all that, there was anywhere where I could turn off paid for software or software that required a purchase. Like right here, you've got reinstall previous purchases. Well, that's great, because if you reinstalled it and you needed it and you did buy some stuff, you'd have to put it on there. But I think as a new person, you ought to realize that there is a lot of application and software, drivers, etc. that you should never, ever have to pay for to be able to use within Linux. There is something for everyone, and that is the greatest thing about Linux. One of the main drags about Microsoft and Windows is you get this operating system that has absolutely nothing in it, a browser, a notepad, a few goofy games, and you sit back and go, now what? Well, if you want Office, that's going to cost you all kinds of money. If you want software to be able to do video editing, that's going to cost you money, and there are dozens of products to choose from, ranging anywhere from $5-6 to hundreds of dollars. Now you look at that and you say, what's going to work for me? Because you buy a $5-6 product, you install it, and it doesn't do diddly squat on your machine. You've wasted $5-6 because software seldom is ever returnable. You then say, well, I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars for the high-end thing that I might be able to use. I mean, Photoshop, I know is expensive, and there's some great video software for Windows, but you cannot spend a lot of money for it. You shouldn't have to worry about that within Linux. It should just be up there and available. OpenShot's great. KDN Live or Kden Live is awesome. Those are both very good video editing softwares. The GIMP is superb for graphic design and doing photo editing. there are lots of free software packages out there that even work within a Windows environment that are having that open source mentality, originally programmed for Linux, but good enough for your Windows machine. Those are some things to think about when looking at a new OS or looking at Linux or even Windows. But Elementary OS is really throwing out a lot of stuff I notice in here that costs money, throwing it up front where I see it, and I'm thinking, I don't want to spend anything here. This shouldn't be here. And like I said, you got the turn on recommendations. You can turn them off, of course, but you start going through and trying to find stuff. And I had a little bit of difficult time using their software center, trying to get through all of the glitter, you might say. So I ended up just going to a terminal and doing the good old apt-get and install and use the command line for the packages that I needed to get and to put on here. Now, it was very simple to get a lot of the issues or the systems that I wanted. GUVC view was simple. Simple screen recorder was just a matter of adding in the repository for the simple screen recorder. I found the website very easily told me how to get that installed without having to compile it, which went ahead and pulled in the 32-bit support that it required and got everything up and running. It was really quite simple with a little bit of tinkering to get this OS up and running. I did not play around with printers on it. I very seldom do. Printing is just something I don't have a need for all that much, but it is there if I had to get into it. Going on about Elementary OS, I don't think I've really missed on too much that I've talked about, other than it is a very crisp, clean operating system. Things look very well polished. I will admit, if we look at, for instance, what it's talking about here in regards to its information, I do agree that the design of Elementary is very nice, that the widgets and the icons and just everything that pops up just looks very refined, and I will give it kudos for that. For a new user, it's okay. You could do worse. I've seen some that are out there that are just really simple to use but ugly to look at. This, unfortunately, one thing you learn when you're programming, at least one thing that was always tried to be taught to me, was that a program is no good no matter how pretty it looks if it doesn't function proper. And I think the most important thing with any application or OS is that you make sure that the mechanics of the OS work good before you make it pretty and flashy. I think they've gone a long way with this distro. I think that most of it works really well. I really haven't had any crashes. It's a little clunky here or there with, I think, software management and making sure that you have the right dependencies laid down to get certain applications. For instance, another example is when I installed Simple Screen Recorder, I'm not used to it telling me that it installed but it can't do anything. And when I was looking at it, it was saying, oh, well, missing codecs for MP4, missing codecs for AAC, missing codecs for OGG Vorbis. And I was like, okay, I'm surprised the dependencies didn't get pulled in for that. But I had to go in there and just do a lot with the codecs. Now, I know some OSs, they'll bring up this little widget or activity that allows you to click on it, and it will install all the multimedia that you're missing. I did not see that within Elementary OS. I looked all over the applications, didn't see anything like that. One nice thing too is if you don't like looking at the big icons and having to go back and forth between the pages, you can switch the view right up here so that you can get a cleaner one-page look and feel and get to everything that you're looking for a little bit better. I kind of like that a little bit easier. It is what it is. That's the great thing about Linux. You can really customize stuff to be exactly the way you feel comfortable with it. And whatever you feel comfortable with may not always be what your neighbor or anybody else likes. I mean, you may like having the kill command for an application on the left side. My personal opinion, I'm used to seeing file in that corner, and I'm used to not going to that corner very often. That it's a real hard habit not to constantly always go to that right corner for all of my window functions and curtain management. But it's your decision. It's what you like. My point in doing all these things is to introduce you guys to different Linux distributions that are out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of distributions, and I'm only going to be really looking at just a drop in the bucket. If you don't like something, there's no real reason to bash it and tell them what a horrible, terrible job they did, as much as it is to say, okay, that one's not for me, throw it off, and look at the other hundreds of distros out there and find one that really meets your needs and looks the way you like it to look. You don't even have to go tweaking everything. You can find so many different distributions out there that someone's built it the way you want it to look. You just have to find it. And that's the main purpose of this. You might look at this and say, hey, I like what they've done. Or you might do like I do. A lot of distributions, I'll look at the different things that they've done, like this bar down here for the quick launch. That's nice, although I do like the Docky that I'm using, DOCKY. That's a nice one. Or somebody I saw in another video was talking about the W bar, I think, which is nice as well. But there's so many different options you can choose. So I like to look at different flavors of Linux and pull little bits and pieces, see how they configured something, see how they did it, how they put it together, and then use that to pull into my Gen 2 box and utilize the best of everything all in one world where I've compiled it. And I think that's the best part of everything, is that you can pick and choose bits and pieces from everything, or you can make one distro look completely different, or utilize the best of that distro and just enjoy it. It's all there and it's all great. And I hope you guys are as enthusiastic about Linux and the different distros out there, and find one through these videos or somebody else's videos that works best for you and that you can install and go forward. There's just so much to offer, and there's so much that's out there that's open source, FOSS, free and open source software, that you could really do a lot for a small business or medium-sized business, or yourself, or any other end user, and realize you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to be able to get a system to work with the packages and software needs that you have. That's the biggest thing to talk to someone. And I'm talking about doing things legally, of course, because downloading a bunch of illegal software is not the right thing to do. I never condone ever bootlegging software, copying somebody else's software. And that's the thing. Linux, you don't have to worry about that, since it's FOSS, free open source software. It's using the general public licensing. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're infringing on software that you might or should have paid money for. And there are awesome products out there. People have written some of the best code, and they've set it out there for everybody to use. And their code is free for you to look at. And if you're a coder and you like to tweak with stuff, they're always asking for help and saying, hey, send me your updates, and they'll look at them. They might incorporate them. Just like with the Linux kernel, people were constantly sending bits and patches for Linus Torvalds to look at and other maintainers to look at. It's a wonderful community that Linux is out there. And to be honest with you, the silliness of world peace is a pipe dream. But Linux brings people from every country together, and it brings them in the ability that they can share a common idea and be able to work together to develop great, wonderful code and applications that myself as an end user get to benefit from. And Well, that's all I've got to say about that. I just appreciate that it's out there and that there's so much to look at. So, thank you for watching. If it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having while you're watching, please enjoy. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for the responses that you've given me. I really appreciate it. Keep the ideas of what OSs you'd like to see me look at, and I will continue to throw something out there. If I don't have something, I just look at DistroWatch and just see, hey, haven't looked at that. It's been updated lately. Let's go for it. Let's try it out. Thank you all very much. I've really enjoyed the things that you say. I try to keep on top of the comments and try to respond as best I can in my free moments. But thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Until next week when I try to do another Gen 2 in review, I hope you're enjoying those, by the way. I really hate to always say what I'm going to talk about because sometimes it changes. But I know someone asked for me to look at the option one-shot with Emerge and explain what the purpose or the need or the necessity or why you'd want to use one-shot versus just a general Emerge. And so I've been thinking about it, reading up on it, because I always want to make sure I'm giving you guys the best information without just, oh, well, gee, he doesn't really understand that technology whatsoever. I'm not so sure if he'd know much about anything else. So I do try to do a little bit of research on some things. Sometimes you use a certain feature for so many years that you really don't know why you use it. You just know it works, and that's why you do it. It is what it is. Until next time, thanks a lot. I appreciate everything. Bye. Well, maybe bye. I gotta find my simple screen recorder. There we are. Alright, thank you very much. See y'all next week.